fosters innovation.
Your second speaker stated that renewable energy boosts our economy. However, switching to renewables is so expensive. Worthy opponents, our research from credible sources states that installing one solar panel, which is the most popular renewable used in Grenada, costs $5,000 to $15,000.
Your second speaker also stated that it's expensive for renewable energy. But, my worthy opponents, isn't it expensive to find the oil, to extract it, and also to import it? My opponents are always speaking about importing renewable energy, but don't you have to import fossil fuels?
The motion is, be it resolved that the Caribbean can generate its own energy without relying on imported energy sources.
Esteemed judges, we strongly believe that the Caribbean can generate its own energy because we can use other energy sources such as solar and wind energy, which is already highly developed. And keep in mind, since ancient days, we have been using solar energy. For example, the use of magnifying glass to produce fire to generate electricity through solar energy. So, if we have been using solar energy since ancient times, why can't we use it now?
My teammates and I fully oppose the resolution simply because the resolution is requiring us to consider generating our energy without relying on importing energy sources. Let's look at fossil fuels, for example. According to the IEA, International Energy Agency, global investment in oil and gas supply is estimated to be around $1 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an extremely high cost.
How many countries have energy sources like oil that they can use to generate energy?
Well, my worthy opponent, we have Guyana, we have Trinidad and Tobago, and we have a lot of others, but the main Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago.
But doesn't this go back to my second point that about the smaller countries? How do these smaller countries get the energy sources without importing?
My worthy opponent, we can use the energy that we have available, which is solar power. Therefore, we do not need to import because we have the materials in the Caribbean to be able to produce energy.
Okay, but what if these smaller countries do not have the financial capabilities to utilize solar power?
My worthy opponent, that is a redundant question, sorry. But we have the private sectors, and if the private sectors do not have enough money, we have the government.
The motion is, be it resolved that government subsidies are essential for the Caribbean's renewable energy future.
Subsidies are critical tools in shaping energy policies, influencing both consumer behavior and business investments. The Caribbean Renewable Energy Development Program estimates that the renewable energy sector could create 150,000 jobs in the Caribbean by 2030. Countries like Dominica have demonstrated that subsidies for geothermal projects can drive economic growth. By exporting clean energy to neighboring islands, Dominica stands to generate significant revenue.
Maintaining subsidies would put a significant strain on our government's finances. According to the Caribbean Development Bank, in countries like Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, subsidies account for 2 to 5% of GDP annually, limiting their ability to invest in critical sectors like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Eliminating subsidies would free up resources for other essential public services and long-term development goals.
Dear worthy opponent, do you know the negative effects these subsidies would have on the Caribbean economy?
My worthy opponent, why do we focus on the negative? focus on the positive.
Dear with the opponent, the negatives matter because if we were to implement these subsidies, we would be further drowning the Caribbean countries in debt. Next question, I am moving on.
Doesn't Grenada already have solar plants and wind turbines installed on island?
Dear with the opponent, these wind turbines and solar energy plants are installed on people's rooftops. Dear with the opponent, there are no big solar energy plants, and the wind energy plant in Carriacou was actually destroyed by Hurricane Beryl. Dear with the
That
opponent.
was not finished.
And there is also a solar power plant in Plain St. Patrick's, which I can see when I stand in the veranda of my house.
The motion is, be it resolved that government ownership of energy resources is essential for energy sustainability.
The renewable energy sector is a major source of job growth. As more investments are made in clean energy technologies, employment opportunities in manufacturing, installation, and maintenance of increasing, which links to my second point of economic growth. The declining cost of solar technologies and increasing cost of traditional energy sources make energy sources beneficial for our economic growth.
In Grenada, where agriculture contributes 6% of GDP, reducing arable land and could harm the government economy by diminishing agricultural output and increasing food prices. Worthy opponents, the agriculture sector relies on consistent and reliable energy for irrigation, processing, and storage. Energy sources such as wind and solar are intermittent and may not provide the necessary reliability if ownership is solely proposed to the government.
Do you agree that if the government has ownership over energy resources, there would be a limit to how much we use?
My worthy opponent, I do not agree with that statement. I believe that individuals who have in their individual solar energy or just renewable energy setups, they would have discretion in the amount they use, and they would also be responsible for the amount of energy they pay for.
The motion is, be it resolved that energy taxes should be reduced to increase jobs.
This issue before us is not just a matter of opinion, but one that directly impacts our future. This issue demands clarity, reason, and without a doubt, action. The creation of jobs is not limited to literal creation, but repetition of existing jobs. Just something to think about. Let us be honest here today. If energy taxes are reduced to increase jobs, this will undoubtedly incentivize more people to choose the energy sector, as the reduction in taxes will expand this sector. Think about it. With all the opportunities available to us today, the reduction of these taxes will expand the sector, allowing for more jobs to be created. And I don't think that is anything that someone should stand against.
Energy taxes being reduced to increase jobs don't make me laugh. Many countries that rely on exporting energy resources will not receive revenue that will further develop their economy and citizens. If these energy taxes are removed, most likely the country will experience an economic downfall in both money and jobs. Example, Guyana is nationally known for exporting oil and gas. When exporting these materials, the tax added gives them a higher profit.
The National Energy Policy, or NEP, of Grenada plans to go 100% renewable by 2030. They reduce all oil usage. Along with this, the taxes would be reduced, and persons who own electric vehicles would also have reduced taxes. This results in the creation of jobs because there will be a need for mechanics, technicians,
and others in repairing and monitoring and maintaining these electric vehicles.
Your first speaker stated that the reduction of these energy taxes expands job opportunities. But how is this so? As our first speaker explained, a reduction does not mean it is fully gone. Therefore, these jobs would remain, which clearly shows no new jobs are created.
The motion is, be it resolved that in Grenada, the use of agricultural land for solar energy production will have negative economic impacts.
Imagine we decide to utilize Grenada's agricultural land to produce solar energy with none left for farmers to plant crops. With no land to plant, Grenada's farmers become jobless, leaving them vulnerable to poverty. Is this really what we want for our farmers, the people who had a colossal hand in shaping Grenada? Moving on, Grenada simply does not have the adequate amount of space to generate enough energy to supply the nation from solar farms. Our lush agricultural land will be turned into large wastelands for all of Grenada's dead solar panel batteries.
Solar energy investments will provide long-term economic growth. By fostering energy independence, reducing reliance on imported fossil fuels, and stabilizing energy prices. The increasing demand for clean energy can also drive innovation and investments in technology sectors. Also, investing in solar energy investments will also create job opportunities, as we will need people to set up these farms, maintain and repair these solar energy farms.
Well, the opponents, are you aware that in the island of Grenada there is excess land that can be used for agriculture, and not only the ones available now?
My worthy opponent, where would that be, my worthy opponent?
These lands can be found in the parishes of St. Andrews, worthy opponent.
But my worthy opponent, that's not enough land to sustain our economy. We still need land to be used to host crops that we export and feed our people.
What about building hospitals with this land?
My worthy opponent, we're not here to debate on building hospitals with this land. Seeing that we are heavily reliant on agriculture to sustain our economy, if it is gone, seeing that we use the land for solar energy and other renewable energy technology, what then shall substitute agricultural sector?
Well, the opponent, we are not heavily on agriculture, but if not agriculture, then we currently have the tourism and sporting sector to support.
Tourism and sporting would not be enough to sustain Grenada, my worthy opponent. Anyhow, my next question.
The motion is, be it resolved that higher taxes on fossil fuels are necessary to promote the move to renewable energy.
Esteemed judges, did you know that the increased taxation on products causes people to be deterred from it? According to Mr. Eric Williams, Transmission and Distribution Manager at Grenlec, states that increased taxes on fossil fuels causes the demand for it to lessen. Their focus now shifts towards renewable energy sector. The population is now exposed to the various forms of energy sources that are right around us.
It is concerning to me that the proposition would dare say that the increase in fossil fuel taxes is necessary to promote the move to renewable energy. Honorable judges, while the increase in fossil fuels taxes may be a contributor to the promotion of the move to renewable energy, it is not necessary.
My worthy opponent, isn't the implementation of renewable energy subsidies a current tactic used by governments to transition to renewable energy?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, my worthy opponent. Are you saying that the current methods used by the government is ineffective in promoting the move to renewable energy?
We are not saying it is ineffective.
Thank you, my worthy opponent.
Would the increase on taxes on fossil fuels not be a forced move towards renewable energy?
It would not be forced.
The opponent, the mood stated that it is necessary.
It is necessary, not forced.
They've stated that increasing taxes will increase revenue to the government. While yes, this is true, the successful promotion of renewable energy all depends on the people. As stated by my second speaker, increased taxes on fossil fuels will put citizens at a disadvantage. Gas prices, groceries, bills, and higher taxes, disaster.
The opposition's second speaker had stated that the government will not be able to achieve the goal of renewable energy if the civilians feel forced into it. However, my worthy opponents, my first speaker had stated that according to national energy policy, the people of the nation desire for this change to benefit both their lives and the lives of their future generations. Now tell me, my worthy opponents, isn't the government by the people, for the people? What makes you think that the government of Grenada will not want to benefit their own nation?
The motion is, be it resolved that foreign investment is key to developing renewable energy in the Caribbean.
To sustainably implement renewable energy, Grenada and other small island developing states within the Caribbean can take advantage of international financing, create public partnerships, adapt finance models, and develop policies to sustain this. Grenada, think about the heavy taxation that will fall on our people to implement renewable energy technologies within our small island developing state.
My opponents with the insinuation that we can only develop renewable energy in the Caribbean by receiving foreign assistance shatters the pillar of independence that we stand on. Esteemed judges, foreign investments can be beneficial to us here in the region. This very aid can be reinforced using existing power structures and impose severe inequalities. My opponents, ponder for a moment. Is this a formidable step towards renewable energy endeavors, guiding our endeavors by foreign investments?
Grenada can collaborate with other Caribbean nations through CARICOM to create our energy grid or pool resources. By developing a regional energy market, Grenada can reduce costs, enhance security, and benefit from economies of scale in renewable energy projects.
Were the opponents, did you know that not only is the Caribbean more than capable of funding itself, but the debts you speak of stem from foreign investments? Yet you want a poor island like Grenada, already in debt, to further dampen our debt in the pursuit of something that will not help us repay it. It is helpful to gain foreign investments, but is not necessary, as we are able to fund this initiative reliably without foreign investment being the key to renewable energy.
The motion is, be it resolved that Caribbean governments should invest more in energy storage technologies to address the intermittency of renewable energy sources.
Without adequate storage, the energy produced is simply too inconsistent to be used, as the changes of weather are unpredictable, as we all have seen from first-hand experience. Intermittent production is a key problem for renewable energy, and the storage investments is the very solution to this problem.
Pray tell we invest all into renewable energy and the energy storage technology. What happens with the electric vehicles? Judges, do you know that most EVs in Grenada are hybrid? Why is this? Renewable energy can only take us so far. After the EV reaches a certain level, it must transition to fossil fuels to keep going. How is the energy storage technology gonna mitigate such a challenge?
You are aware that to implement energy storage, we need to have sustainable energy generation of renewable energy, correct?
Yes, we are, my worthy opponents.
Can 3.5 megawatts of energy supply Grenada during a blackout?
No, it cannot, which is why we should still in.
Thank you. So why should we invest into storage technology rather than developing and improving renewable energy technology?
Because the development and improvement of that is through the storage technologies, given that with them we will have power saved for when there is a potential blackout or the fossil fuel generation in Grenlec fails.
However, my worthy opponent, the backup with a hybrid approach to backup of fossil fuels is an alternative to expensive energy storage technologies.
The motion is, be it resolved that off-grid solar energy is a viable alternative for communities without access to traditional power grids.
Your second speaker would have spoken about the price of microgrids. What about the money spent by the government used to import traditional energy fuel?
Well, over time, my worthy opponent, the government would spend less and less money on fossil fuels. As you know, fossil fuels are running out. So eventually, there will come a time when we spend no money on fossil fuels, and all that money will go into microgrids and grids with solar energy and other renewable energy technology.
How much fossil fuels do you think our government imports annually?
My worthy opponent, according to energy.gov, Grenada utilizes 2,000 barrels of fossil fuels annually.
The cost of off-grid solar energy is outrageously high. The maintenance and installation costs are also daunting. What about countries that don't have the funds? I leave that for you to think about. Additionally, the second speaker of the opposition stated that there are benefits to transitioning to traditional grids. However, worthy opponents, as my second speaker stated, there is a need to replace weak roofs of houses. Not only is it a strain on these poverty-stricken citizens to pay for off-grid solar energy, but you are also asking them to get more money to replace their weak roofs just to house the off-grid solar energy. The money that the government will invest into these projects to give these rural countries solar devices will be easily paid back by the Paris Agreement in grants. These loans that they will be taking for these projects will be easily repaid in no time. I have one question, my fellow judges. Are solar farms on top of people's houses? Are all solar panels on top of people's houses of their roof? Why are my worthy opponents only talking about solar panels on top of people's roof? Solar panels could be anywhere, literally. Could be on the ground, it could be on a pole, it could be anywhere. So them saying that it could be on top of a roof is just completely false.
The motion is, be it resolved that Caribbean governments should invest in the research and development of climate-resilient buildings.
Esteemed judges, we stand at a crucial crossroads in our pursuit to take on the turbulent effects of climate change. And because of this, we cannot ignore that we are faced with the pressing issue of energy instability. Opponents, many of our energy systems and climate mitigation practices and how they are engineered into our building infrastructure were established decades ago and designed to meet the demands of a different era. Today, they are not just dated, they are vulnerable. Vulnerable to the increasing severity of storms and climate change, and vulnerable to failures that disrupt our lives and undermine economic potential during the adversities of climate change.
The Caribbean is one of the most vulnerable regions in the world to climate change and extreme weather events. Each time a tropical storm or hurricane hits, it destroys infrastructure, leading to enormous recovery costs that divert funds from health, education, and social services. If, when constructing these climate resilient buildings, a hurricane or storm decides to pass through, wouldn't the cost be even higher to repair damages just made and to continue the construction of these expensive buildings?
Consider the financial realities. Implementing climate-resilient buildings requires substantial investments.
Esteemed judges and attentive audience, allow me to bring my argument to a sweet close. The second dish of my two-course meal, my dessert. Integrating smart grid technologies in aiding buildings to become more climate resilient. ZPN Energy states that smart grids are designed to enhance the resilience of energy buildings by providing real-time data and analytics, which allow utilities to predict and respond to outages more effectively. Puerto Rico is once again a crucial example to support this point. After Hurricane Maria, Puerto Rico was left in the dark for 181 days, 6 hours and 45 minutes.
As climate change increases, the frequency and intensity of natural disasters also does. And building resilient infrastructure is increasingly expensive. And even with research and investments, we cannot control or entirely predict the weather conditions. This will inevitably lead to a destruction of unfinished and unstable buildings, which will no doubtedly be a waste of our limited funds. No, my worthy opponents, I sure hope that you do not propose that we go into this expenditure without the access to adequate funds and pray for the Good Samaritan Act of other countries. I think not. Not only this, but looking for geographical sites and research is not only costly, but time-consuming. This is time that we do not have.
The motion is, be it resolved that microgrids are a viable solution for improving energy resilience in the Caribbean, particularly in the face of natural disasters.
Audience, imagine if a next hurricane like Beryl comes in Grenada. If we already have microgrids integrated into Grenada, it will help us withstand the effects of power outages caused by the hurricane. This tells us that microgrids will help us fight any natural disasters that come our way. Therefore, the Caribbean should definitely implement microgrids as they can reduce the amount of carbon emissions we give off.
Can you give an example of a supergrid in the Caribbean?
My worthy opponent, there are not any supergrids currently active in the Caribbean, but there are multiple supergrids active throughout the world. There's one in East Asia, which leads East Asia to competing.
So why are you suggesting that we implement supergrids in the Caribbean if there aren't any right about now? Isn't there a reason that there aren't any supergrids in the Caribbean right about now?
My worthy opponent, we are saying that supergrids should be implemented. Dr. Rodney Itiki has suggested that we place supergrids in places like Belize and Guyana who are not as susceptible to hurricanes or other natural disasters that we face.
But don't you think that microgrids would also be suitable in the countries that you just stated?
My worthy opponent, again, what works for one country will not work for another. So what works for Trinidad will not work for Grenada. Supergrids will provide a solution for the entire Caribbean.
My worthy opponents, your first speaker preached about the Hurricane Beryl. But what if this same Hurricane Beryl destroys that microgrid? Honorable judges, let's common sense this. If there is a sudden spike or sudden prone in the amount of energy put through the grid, this can affect energy infrastructure drastically, resulting in a power outage.
Our opponent's first speaker expounded on how microgrids alone is not a viable solution and on the implementation of supergrids. However, the resolution and my team's stance is not saying that microgrids are the only viable solution, but a solution.
The motion is, be it resolved that transitioning to electric cars is imperative for the Caribbean's sustainable future.
As we know, electric vehicles do not rely on petrol or diesel, which comes from fossil fuels. Firstly, When these fossil fuels are burnt, it releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is very toxic for the environment. According to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, a typical petrol vehicle emits about 4.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide each year.
A sustainable future is one where the usage of fossil fuels is so close to zero that we as a species can smell the fumes being spat out of the vehicles we drive. And our cars are not powered by fossil fuels. My worthy opponents may think that electric cars use no fossil fuels and don't release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, but this way of thinking is simply false.
Worthy opponents, don't you think that these sustainable tech advancements that EVs provide will benefit our sustainable future, showing that EVs are imperative for a sustainable future in the Caribbean?
It may pose a few benefits, but it is not imperative.
How can you prove your statement?
I can prove that this is not imperative by the government in the Caribbean turn to looking at agriculture and tourism instead of electric vehicles. They abandoned the thought of electric vehicles almost, looking at tourism and agriculture, which proves that they believe otherwise.
The motion is, be it resolved that e-commerce and online marketplaces are effective tools for empowering small businesses and reducing poverty in the Caribbean.
The World Bank has highlighted that the implementation of e-commerce can encourage local talent development. For example, in Guyana, e-commerce systems saw 15% of roles and jobs going to local workers. Why wouldn't we want this? Why wouldn't we want to empower and alleviate poverty in the Caribbean region? Ponder upon this.
Allow me to enhance your knowledge to the point of skills gaps. A significant barrier is posed in the e-commerce and online marketplace is the lack of technical skill. Potential entrepreneurs have no necessary training or education to successfully navigate the tech landscape. An example of this is found in Jamaica. The growing interest in starting small businesses and getting out of the poverty is hindered due to the lack of quality tech education and training programs. The World Bank states that the total early stage startup businesses rate was 6.5% in 2021, which decreased from 9.5%. This resulted in underemployment and limited opportunities for those seeking to empower their small businesses.
In your first speech, you stated that Caribbean markets aren't competitive. How do you pursue?
I never stated that, my only opponent.
Yes, you did. How do you propose that they become competitive globally, if not through the use of e-commerce and online marketplaces to access customers internationally?
My only opponent, don't you think that increasing market competitiveness would stifle small businesses?
My only opponent, that was not the question I asked you. I asked you, how do you propose that they become competitive, if not being able to access customers globally?
My only opponent, there are several ways that person can do that, my only opponent.
Would you care to expand on one of those ways?
Can you repeat?
The GrenLec Debates. Power, bright ideas.
The GrenLec Debates will be broadcast on MTV Monday and Thursday at 9 p.m. and on Saturday at 6 p.m. and on GBN TV Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. and on Sunday at 4 p.m.
Tune in.
This Christmas,